All right.
You first. No, me first.
Hey guys, if you are about ready to cross the Pacific Ocean to head to French Polynesia, then this is a must-see video. We are going to just give you a full rundown of the things that we wish we knew before we left. We have been through the Marquesas for 2 months, the Tuamotus for 6, and then the Societies now. That's where we are. We've been here 2 months, and we have a lot to share on the following topics: long stay, visa, and CDS, provisioning in Panama and stores in French Polynesia, the ocean and things that you need to be equipped for the ocean, navigation, floating your chain needs, rigging and sales recommendations, shipping into French Polynesia, medical options and prescription drugs, communications, fuel, and then a miscellaneous category. And in each of these categories, we're going to give you some recommendations. So we're gonna start with long stay visa.
And I just want to add that one thing that we have found out is that 80% of the people that watch our videos are not subscribed. Can you believe that? All that work, especially that the Admiral does. Guys, if you like content like this that's out to help you, we don't make really anything off of this, but one thing we do appreciate is your subscription. So hit that subscribe button, hit the bell for instant notifications of new videos. Always hit the like button because we know you like it. It doesn't take any time. Leave us comments. We love your comments, and share this with other cruiser friends. We really appreciate you guys. Now,
okay,
Admiral.
We are not going to share with you things that you can find in the compendiums, just so you know. We're going to share with you our personal experience. So if you want more information than what we're giving you, or different information, start with the compendiums, which are documents you can find online about French Polynesia and each of the island groups. First, let me start with the long-term visa and the CDS. You do not need to use Tahiti crew for the long stay visa. You can easily get that paperwork done without a problem. I'm going to be looking to the right because I do have notes to keep us on track. So that's why I'm looking off to the right. If you plan to spend less than 2 years in French Polynesia, then the date that you arrive doesn't really matter. But if you plan to spend 2 full years, then you need to make sure you arrive after May 1, because 2 years later, it will be hurricane season until May 1. So you don't want to leave French Polynesia before that. We weren't planning to spend 2 years here. So we arrived on April 1, and now we have a 1 month gap that puts us a little bit at risk if there is a cyclone that is forming.
If you like that suggestion, hit like and then write in the comments, like. Thank you.
The process in Panama was very easy. It took about 4 weeks. We handed in our documents at the end of December and got them back at the end of January. It is encouraged by the French embassy to keep your passport. There is a document that you just have to fill out and sign that says that you have not turned it in. I do have templates of all the cover letters that I used. You are welcome to them. Just send me a note in the comments and I will send them to you. If you are on a 3-month blitz tour, you are gonna blow through French Polynesia and move on.
Don't do it unless you have to. Think long and hard. If you got the cash and the time, you wanna go slow.
Yes, French Polynesia is definitely worth being here for more than 3 months.
So much to see, so many different flavors. It takes a long time to get around to everything. And each time you go somewhere, you're gonna wanna stay for a while because it's awesome. Most of the 90-day visa people that came through were just in such a hurry. Watch your exposure to them because they're going to try to get you to come along with them real quickly to the next location. But remember, you're on a different timeline than they are if you're on a long-term visa.
We are currently working on our CDS. To get your CDS, the carte de séjour, you start about 2 months prior to the expiration of your visa, and Tahiti crew is great for that process because much of it has to be done in French, and unless you speak fluently, it's going to be a tough process. Could you do it? Absolutely, but you don't have to worry about your CDS right now because that's a year from now. Just so you understand, it costs about $300 US per person at Tahiti crew to get this done. You need a copy of your marriage certificate and birth certificate, plus your banking information, and then the rest of it you can get here.
And one thing that I didn't know is that if you love it after 2 years and you still want to stay, you can import your boat. You just have to pay import fees and then renew your carte du jour every year. So if you really like it, well, this could be your new home.
3 recommendations we have in this category. The first is start learning French now, or to download a translation app so you can communicate. A lot of people don't speak English here, and French is the primary language. Keep your options open. We were not going to stay 2 years, and now we are, and your mind might change, and there is plenty to do and see.
Nous apprenons le français avec Duolingo. Le chouette est très mignon.
That's really good, honey.
Thank you.
All right, category number 2 is provisioning and stores in French Polynesia. We had so many questions about this before we left. One thing you have to know is you can find many things here, but they are going to be 2 times, 3 times, 4 times the price of what you would pay anywhere else. So we highly recommend get everything in Panama, bulk up as much as you possibly can that is considered safe for your boat.
Especially if you've got a big boat. And if you're going to stay for 2 years, you really need to load up.
French Polynesia does subsidize some items. You'll see that in the stores where there's a red tag. That means that that price has been subsidized. They do that on staples like chicken,
flour, sugar, just real basics.
You can get a little bit of a price break there, but the rest of it is going to be extremely expensive.
And if you're in the Tuamotus and the Marquesas, because it's further away from Tahiti and has to be shipped another time, you're going to be paying even more there and have less availability. We took 9 months total to get to Tahiti, so stocking up and just augmenting with freshies in the Tuamotus and Marquesas was the best choice for us.
If you don't have milk allergies, we definitely recommend buying a lot of powdered milk. You can make yogurt, you can make smoothies, milk.
You have less trash.
How do you handle your trash? Thanks to our friends Heidi and Jurgen on Valentine, they gave us a great suggestion. They suggested that we get a large water bottle, and anything plastic we stuff into that bottle.
You have less weight. You have a water maker, so you can make as much of this stuff as you want to. We bought these huge containers. The shelf life lasts for years. Also, I would recommend for drinks, one of our favorites was Tang Passion Fruit. It's sugar-free, it takes up no space, has a great shelf life. Just add water, and then you're not carrying around all of these juice boxes that you're cutting back on your sugar. Think about how to save space and weight and trash with everything that you provision with.
2 things that are extremely expensive here in French Poly are coffee and alcohol. So we recommend really stocking up on those 2 items, because if you don't, you're gonna pay through the nose here.
And what I did was I just brought rum and did away with the bottles and put them all in a new jerry can for diesel in order to save space and to cut back on the amount of trash and weight.
So while we're telling you to really stuff your boat full, we are also telling you to leave room, and that is for fish that you catch along the way, because if your fridges and freezers are full, you're not going to be able to continue to fish. And we found that out very quickly, had to stop fishing, and missed out on a lot of fresh fish for the fridge.
If there's one thing that I could rearrange, is I would have the best fishing toward the end. After you have some room, after like the 3rd week, you would have eaten through a lot of the freshies in the refrigerator. Problem is, the best fishing is in between Panama and Galapagos. That's where the Humboldt Current goes. These things are going to be hopping into your boat, and you're going to stop fishing because you're catching so many of them and don't have room to put them in there. It's a fishing fantasy.
One of the things we were told before we left Panama was to make sure we go to the fresh food market, which had vegetables and fruits. I have to say, we loaded up. We probably spent $200 or $300 there. We found that they did not last all that long. So we recommend at PriceSmart, we found the best quality of fruit and vegetable that was out there, and it lasted a long time. So our recommendation is to go with the grocery stores. Go with fruit that hasn't been refrigerated yet, but don't make that hour-long journey that's really expensive out to the fruit and vegetable market. It's not worth it.
You want to tell them about eggs?
So you definitely want to buy eggs that are not refrigerated, not washed when you get them, which I think pretty much is every egg that you buy in Panama, because as you are underway, you're going to just flip them each day one time, and that will preserve them for about 3 weeks. Be very careful that you do not break the eggs. If you do, it is really nasty. The smell is pretty horrible if you don't catch it in time. So try and do your best to preserve them, put plastic wrap around them, whatever you need to keep them safe, but also to be able to flip them each day. Okay, that's provisioning to get to the Marquesas. In the Marquesas, you can find tons of fruits and vegetables.
There is so much food growing in the Marquesas that you're literally tripping over it on the road, putting stuff in your bag. It's the most fertile place that I think I've ever been to.
I think
Pamplemousse galore. It's very fertile, very lush.
You're not gonna have trouble finding fruit. As a matter of fact, we spent more money walking into people's yards and saying, could we buy fruit from you? And they were very happy to oblige. They made some money. We got some fresh fruit picked straight from the trees. Vegetables are very easy to find. You're just not gonna have a huge variety. Most of them are root vegetables like carrots, onions, garlic. You'll eat a lot of cabbage because lettuce doesn't keep and cabbage does. In the frozen section, you can find bags of frozen vegetables.
Tomatoes also, they have tomatoes.
They did have tomatoes in Nuka Hiva, or Hiva.
Oh, and one thing you've got to bring too is lots of, powdered garlic, onion flakes. Get dehydrated vegetables. Make sure you have lots of that. Tomato paste takes up hardly any room, doesn't have hardly any weight, but it's super concentrated, and you can make your own pasta sauce from it. So you got to think a different way. Shelf life, convenience, saving space, saving weight, saving money.
Eggs were fairly easy to find, but there were some boats that said they could never find eggs. I don't know why, but we had no issues.
They were on a 90-day visa, and they were in a hurry to catch the next weather window.
And that could be a lot of times. If you ask the shopkeepers, they will say, oh, the eggs will come on Friday, and it's Wednesday, and people had to go. So that is a key point. Dairy was very, very easy to find. It's a French country, lots of cheese, milk, butter, yogurt, but
cream, pate.
But there was very little variety, so just be aware of that. Frozen meats were very easy to find, but you could not find fresh meats. That, especially in the Marquesas and the Tumotus, those just did not exist.
One thing that you can find is ingredients to make tiramisu. That happens to be the Admiral's favorite thing.
The smallest store will have those ingredients.
I know.
Okay, let's talk about the Tumotus. The Tumotus are equipped via ship and plane. The Tumotus, they don't grow their own fruits and veg, so they're a little bit more limited. So if you're going into Makamo or Faka or Rangi or Tikiao, the bigger islands, you can find a lot of things. Coconuts are everywhere. You will eat coconuts to your heart's content.
Coconuts galore. Have at it.
As well as coconut crabs. So if you like fresh crab meat, you can hunt coconut crabs at night and be very satisfied. So that's a wonderful thing that you'll find mainly in the Tumotus, but not elsewhere. On the smaller islands, you might find a lot of things, but you have to ask the locals, and you might get lucky.
The one thing you're going to find are baguettes. They are going to be in every place where there are human beings.
Except for Fata Hiva.
Even better, they are going to have chocolate croissants. You feel like you're in France while you're here. It's the best thing ever. And
in the societies, let's talk about them, you will get fat because you can literally find everything here. They have aisles of just cheese, aisles of just pate, aisles of just frogois. It's pretty incredible.
And get this, a lot of the meats, pretty much all of them, come from New Zealand. It's all grass-fed, and it's actually pretty reasonable considering what you get. So you have access to all of that. It's fresh. You have a lot to look forward to.
Staples like rice, flour, jam, butter, canned foods are very easy to come by, so I wouldn't worry about that. but things like oats, if you are an oatmeal fan or you like cooking or baking with oats, you want to stock up on those because they only have very small containers and they're pretty expensive.
But if you've got room to carry all that stuff, I highly recommend doing that because you're going to save, you're going to spend to save. And babe, tell them about your food saver. This is one of the best things that we've ever done that you would probably never do on land.
So here are some recommendations for you, and the first is use a food saver for your rice, your flour, and your beans and pasta. Otherwise, you will have an infestation that you don't want to deal with. It is brutal.
The reason why it does such great jobs, it sucks all the air, so there's no oxygen, there's also no moisture in there. And the best thing about it is you can reproportion large portions of flour and put it in usable sections, and this stuff is going to last forever. Plus, when you vacuum it up, it saves a ton of space.
Yes, and it kills all of the bugs that are in it. So you get a little extra protein, but at least they're dead.
And make sure that you get plenty of bags to go with your machine. You can easily reuse them.
And those are easily found in Panama. A few other recommendations. If you are a little concerned about the eggs, buy some dried egg powder or chia seeds as a substitute, and you can use that for baking. We highly encourage you to buy the $30 to $35 PriceSmart card, start provisioning early, and then pass that card on to someone else who's crossing. I think probably 15 or 20 people used our card after we left. They just kept passing it around, which we were very happy about.
Speaking of baking, we highly recommend, if you don't want to do it yourself all the time, get a bread machine and make your bread. But let me tell you, when you get to the Tuamotus and even Tahiti, there's great white bread and pan, that type of thing, but there's very little of that whole grain, like super grain stuff. There is like none of that here. For some reason, it's just not French. So you're going to have to make your own. And the great thing about the bread machines, it doesn't take up a lot of space and it doesn't make a huge mess.
Some other recommendations: bring sprout seeds to supplement when you're in the Tuamotus, but make sure they are water-based germination, not dirt-based. If you are in a rush, like we've said before, you're gonna have a little bit more of a challenge provisioning because some things will come in after you have to move away from a particular island or town. So you're gonna want to be even more conscientious about your provisioning. And the last thing is, if you see it, buy it immediately, because if you don't, the next time you go back, it won't be there. The third category we're going to talk about is the ocean. One of the most beautiful things and reasons why we come this far is the South Pacific. It's pretty amazing. The upside of the Marquesas is that you get there faster than the Tuamotus. The downside is that the anchorages are a bit rolly and there is bad visibility in most of them. So just be aware of that. The good news about the bad viz is that you'll probably see a lot of mantas, but snorkeling is not as good in the Marquesas. But the islands are still amazing, and you're going to
the anchorages are stunning, some of the most beautiful in the world.
And you're going to do a lot more hiking than you will probably snorkeling.
And if you really want to learn more about these anchorages and stuff that we've been to, go back and watch some of our past videos where we have an in-depth look at all of our favorite places.
But the good news about the Tuamotus and the societies is that the water is amazing. Now, you have the added challenge of floating your chain, of having to time the passes, of zombies that you have to avoid, but we'll talk about that later. The water temperature here ranges from around 81 to 84 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 27 to 29 degrees Celsius. So you might need to bring a shorty if you're going to be in the water all day. I wear a long suit if it's colder, but you definitely want something to cover up.
Well, if you're scuba diving also, you may want a longie. So I highly recommend bringing a couple of suits just so you've got a backup.
Fishing in the lagoons is probably not going to happen, spearfishing or fishing, because of ciguatera, the bacteria that you do not want to get. But outside the atolls, you will have opportunities to fish, and you can catch mahi, wahoo, and tuna.
I haven't gotten a memo on that.
Also, if you can buy long fins before you come, they are really, really helpful, especially in deeper anchorages where you want to swim down, check your anchor, or just free dive. It's really easy to get your tanks filled at the larger islands, Faka, Rangi, Qingdao. The dive operations will refill your tanks between $5 and $15 a tank if you don't have your own compressor.
And if you want to check out our new compressor and how we operate it
off of electric,
so check out these 2 videos.
Okay, here's some recommendations for the ocean category. Bring a spare GoPro because we saw many people lose theirs or break theirs. And bring at least 2 underwater housings for your GoPro. Bring an extra drone.
Yes.
Bring good sunblock because the sun is really strong. Bring essential oils and carrier oils because essential oils can be used for so many things, especially if you're in the Tuamotus and don't have access to medications.
Yeah, tea tree oil is really good. Frankincense can be used for sun blisters, sun cancer that's starting up. They call it sailor's lip.
Bring swim buoys or use chain floats or a stand-up paddleboard when you're swimming because boat traffic can be deadly.
And you're going to have so much fun in the water. Make sure you're ready for it.
Bring a couple of machetes as well to open the coconuts.
Yes.
All right, let's move on to category 4, which is navigation.
Okay.
So you want to have multiple options for navigation. Obviously, your eyes are always the best. We use Navionics, we depend upon that, but we use OpenCPN as a secondary with satellite overview, which is really critical, especially in the Tuamotus.
And I'll have my iPad out and I'll be on Google Maps satellite as a third.
Yeah, we use 2 different satellite overlays, Google, and then we use Bing overview.
As you know, being an experienced mariner, mariners use all sources of information in order to make decisions of where and how to go at sea. So we cannot recommend enough, especially when you're inside the atolls. They're just littered with bommies.
And I have put all of our tracks from our entrances and moving around the Tuamotus in a folder on my Google Drives. That will at least give you a basis for where to begin, especially on an overcast day where you can't see those bommies easily. You at least have tracks to guide your path. So let me know in the comments if you want access to that. All right, some recommendations for this category. Download all of the maps to OpenCPN with various overlays. Really important to do that ahead of time. There are compendiums that exist for all of the island groups that include maps, that include bommy locations. Download them, read them, especially the weather compendium. The weather here is really different than it is
in
the Northern Hemisphere.
Pass timing, when to come in and out of the passes.
Yep, pass timing is also located in those compendiums.
They call them guesstimators.
Guesstimator. Very much a guesstimator. There's a guesstimator that we have that I can also give you, so let me know if you want that in the comments.
And each atoll is different.
And take a look at Patufa, Soggy Paws, Sugar Shack. Their websites and blogs are really, really helpful. Moving on to the 5th category, floating your chain. In the Marquesas, you do not have to float your chain. The anchorages are actually quite deep and they're not full of bommies. But when you come to the Tuamotus, you need to start floating your chain. Most people do come to Raroia first. It's sort of that transition atoll where you can get away with not floating your chain as long as the wind doesn't do 360s. But when you get to Raroia, you're definitely going to want to look for pearl floats either on the shore that have washed up, or you're going to want to buy some or use your fenders.
If you go to the Kontiki anchorage just straight across the atoll, you really don't have to use pearl floats, but you can go south on your dinghy, just about a 15-minute ride, and go to a shut down pearl farm.
If he's still open.
Yeah, and there's a caretaker there, and he will gladly sell you super cheap or make a trade for pearl floats. That's a great place to get them.
Which we're not supposed to tell anyone. Shh, don't tell anyone.
Shh, that's our secret.
Okay, make sure you bring good clips, at least from Panama, and also line. I have just put out a video on how to float your chain. Go ahead and take a look at it. It'll tell you exactly what you need and how to float your chain. So the recommendation is make sure you have chain clips and enough line before you come. If you're on the 90-day pass through of French Polynesia, a lot of people just use their fenders. I don't like using the fenders because the pressure of the water crushes them. Yes, they come back up, but they're never really the same.
And you know why you only need the fenders? Because if you're on the 90-day, you're going to be at sea most of the time and not anchored because you're in a big hurry.
Okay, category number 6 is rigging and sails. There are great people to work on your rigging, to fix your sails, repair them, to replace your lines in Tahiti. You will pay a lot for that service and for the equipment. We changed our full rigging, and we can highly recommend the company that we used.
And we did an entire video on it.
It was about the same price as we paid in Florida. Look at our video to see what that cost was. Our running rigging was going to run about 3 times the amount we would pay in the US, so we had friends come over and bring that for us.
When you get major things like that done, you don't have to pay all the taxes that the locals would pay. Same thing with fuel. So make sure when you get stuff done to have the taxes backed out, and you have to have some special forms, but it's totally worth it.
Yes, that's a great reminder. When you check in Nuku Hiva or in Hiva-Oa, make sure you bring a hard copy of your check-in document so they can sign it, because we had to have someone was really nice. They were back in Hiva-Oa, and they actually went to the gendarme for us and had that printed. If they didn't do that for us, we would never have gotten the 16% off.
It saved us thousands of dollars.
Yeah. So the recommendation is make sure you bring enough spare parts in, or make sure you have plan B, which is friends coming to French Polynesia to visit you.
Yeah, one of the decisions, as you know, to head to the Pacific, you have to have a whole new level of preparation.
We've been talking about shipping into French Polynesia. Let me go on to that as category number 7 and just say you have 3 options. One is probably your cheapest one, to fly someone in as your mule and bring the parts. The plane tickets, believe it or not, are cheaper than what you're going to pay for shipping, which is your option 2, which is to have it shipped to French Polynesia, and it has to go through customs. You have to have an agent. And then option 3 is buy it here, but it's going to be easily, if you can find it, 3 to 4 times the price you would pay anywhere else.
Plus, if you have extra parts, you may not need them, but somebody else may need them. We had a boost pump go out in our Spectra water maker. A cruiser said, look, I got 2 extra. I can ship one down to you, so you get up and running quickly, which is really important when you're out of water. And this guy said, look, all you have to do is send it to my home address, and the next person that comes with my family will bring it with them.
And the community is very tight that way. We share everything out here. You need to.
Except for wives. Well, mostly.
Okay, category number 8, medical options and prescription drugs. This is such a great thing about Tahiti. It has great medical services. We have done annuals in Panama, Guatemala, Colombia, and we have found French Polynesia, Tahiti specifically, to have fantastic doctors and hospitals. To see a doctor here, it varies from about $35 per person to the dentist, which was the most expensive, for $120 per person, but still, you can't beat that pretty much anywhere else, at least not in the US. All of the doctors that the cruisers recommend, their English is either perfectly fluent or just about perfectly fluent. They're amazing. The doctors are professional, they have a lot of experience. Prescription medicine here is not like Central America. You can just walk into any pharmacy and get pretty much any drug you want without a prescription. But here they do require prescriptions easily gotten by the doctors.
And our doctor gave us a whole year's supply. And then you can probably re-up for another whole year before you leave. Here's another incredible thing. If you're on a long stay visa and you're in the Tuamotus, even though you're not a citizen here, if something serious happens to you, they will air flight you to Tahiti.
They have 2 air ambulances ready to fly anywhere for emergencies.
The Tuamotus just have like basic clinics to handle basic issues.
A lot of cruisers have issues with skin cancer because we're in the sun so much, and the dermatological services here are absolutely excellent. I've had some surgery, friends have had some surgery, and it's gone really well.
Is that because they have so much skin in the game?
Oh my gosh. But you can check out our videos and see that dentistry is a little bit rough outside of Tahiti. Wouldn't recommend it unless it's an emergency. So a couple of recommendations in this category: bring enough meds with you and be prepared to fly to Tahiti if there's something that is wrong. And if you need to get a medical appointment, make your appointments in advance. We made our appointments in Tahiti while we were in the Tuamotus 2 months in advance to make sure that we were able to see every doctor that we wanted to while we were in Papeete. They do communicate online, WhatsApp, and email. Okay, category number 9 is communications. And the good news is Starlink works beautifully here. You have it in all of the islands as long as you're within 12 nautical miles, just like everywhere else in the world. It works. Most people do transfer their Starlink to Fiji because it's about $80 a month, which is super cheap. I don't know if that's going to continue. This is January of 2025. But right now it is really cheap and super convenient. For those of you who don't want to pay $80 a month, you can also buy a local SIM card. When you're in Tahiti and the societies, it won't be a problem at all. But one recommendation we do have is to bring spare cables for Starlink or bring a mini Starlink as a backup, because it's really painful when your Starlink goes down and you don't have access to the internet.
Once you get used to all of this, and a lot of people work part-time or full-time on their boats using this high-speed link. Once you get used to it, it's hard to go back. So make sure you have a backup.
All right, you're hanging in there with us. 2 more categories left. The second to last one is fuel. Fuel is very easily, or pretty easily found, I should say, in French Polynesia, if you're not flying through like those 90-dayers, because a lot of times fuel will be out for a week, but then the next week the boat brings it in. So if you have the time to wait around for a week, you're not gonna have a problem. If you're on a fast calendar or schedule, you might have a little bit of trouble finding it, but really you should be able to sail from island to island. And once you fill up in the Marquesas, you shouldn't need to get fuel again until you get to Tahiti, unless you have very small fuel tanks.
Especially if you have an ex-charter boat, Catamaran, when they have huge fuel tanks, we fill up maybe one time every year and a half, 2 years.
Once you get to Tahiti, or before, you can also get your tax-free certificate, but you do have to bring your boat into the filling station to be able to use that certificate. They do not allow it with the filling of jerry cans. And it was very easy to get that certificate in Papeete Day. A couple of recommendations in this category: make sure you have spare jerry cans on board, make sure you fill them up completely when you leave Panama. Try not to use all of your fuel on the crossing. All right. The last category is miscellaneous recommendations, and then we are done.
Ooh, my favorite.
So here are some recommendations. First of all, we had a number of friends lose their inverters on their crossing. So we recommend getting a small 2,000 watt inverter as a spare. Carry that on board. That way, if your inverter goes out, you have the ability to run some basic appliances.
And guys, the last thing you want to do is plan to spend 9 months in the Tuamotus and then have things start going wrong and then have to go back to Tahiti. Listen, it's hard to get back to the Tuamotus. It's a lot of easting. Have this stuff on your boat. Switch it out right away. Help somebody else out with it who's having a problem. We're very electric these days. Most boats with lithium batteries, we run everything on electric, especially on this boat. Fuel, it's butane here, not even propane. You want to run electric appliances and not have to hassle with that stuff.
Speaking of electric appliances, this is 220 land. So if you have a favorite appliance like a tea kettle or a toaster oven, you may want to pack a second one as a spare, because the only way you're going to get a new one is to have it flown in. Another recommendation is to use No Foreign Land. If you are not familiar with it, look it up. It's an app on your phone as well as a website, and it is extremely powerful.
It is.
And definitely something you want to be able to access each day.
And when you find new things that you want other people to know about, you can put these things on there and you can follow other boats. There's just so many things that you can do. This thing, along with the weather, is something you're going to look at every day.
In the Marquesas especially, we used a hiking app, as well as here in the societies we use WikiLeaks, but you could use Maps.me. There are other ones. You want to download that so that you know where the great hikes are, because there are amazing places to go. We also recommend having buckets for water collection because it rains a lot during rainy season, and having those buckets is great for doing laundry or washing dishes or anything like that. It just gives you an opportunity not to have to make more water in a place that might have not the best conditions.
One of my favorite things is if you're into getting in touch with your Jungle Boy roots, which is one of the reasons why, or Jungle Girl, which is one of the reasons why we bought the boat and we're coming to French Polynesia. There is nothing like that bow shower on the front of the boat, out of the bucket. clothing optional, of course. It's incredible taking a bow shower. Don't miss out on it, and don't waste that water that's falling from the sky. It's pennies from heaven.
So that's it from us. I know it's been a long video, but we're glad that you've stuck with it. Hopefully that answered all of your questions. If not, send us questions in the comments and we would be happy to answer them for you. We want to wish you fair winds and following seas, and we hope your crossing is a great one, and we look forward to seeing you here in French Polynesia.
Thank you so much for watching.
Have a great day, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.